Okay, so we're back with a different game altogether. Let's try this one. Hang on one second, if we can get back to it. There we are. Here's a cute little kitty. I like that kitty. This one's Ballads at Midnight. I had seen this one and I actually wasn't going to put it on here, but hey, we'll play it now instead. This is it's kind of like a visual novel type thing, I think. I don't know. I've never played it before. I thought I'd try it. I was going to try it out myself first, but I have not. So let's give it a try. See if we like it or not. Why not? Yeah. So let's see what we can do. I did notice in the settings, I hope the thing overall for you is good. The sound. Sorry, I need a little bit of something to drink. I noticed in the settings, you can, it's got a settings even here for text display, which I was really impressed with. If you're dyslexic, it has a setting for that, which is really cool. I'm just gonna put on the default because I am not. It will read the text and fast forward condition for text skipped. And you can do it in a window or you can do it full display. I prefer full screen. So let's see how this goes. I've adjusted the sound not only here in the game, but in the others. So in the OBS. So let me know how it sounds. Anyway, we're back. And when I click off of it, aha, lo and behold, it actually works the way it's supposed to. Marvelous, darling, marvelous. So let's start this one and see what we can do. Hopefully it works okay. Pre-roll ads are disabled, so when you come on in, there won't be any ads. Yay! So hopefully you like this one. Bella's not too sure. She's like, what are we doing? I wanted to play the other one, but we'll see. This isn't starting. Why is it not starting? There we go. Chapter 1. I'm excited. Let's try this. My wrist itch. Oh, it's not voiced? Oh, okay. My stomach is churning and empty. My legs are sore. The swath of hemp fabric strung taut around my cheeks and tied in a knot behind my head is chafing against the corners of my mouth. There's a bitterness on my tongue. I idly wonder if it's the taste of regret. My 2 armored escorts ride ahead of me, exchanging hushed words. I make a short, unhappy noise to contribute to the conversation. They ignore me. I think we're being kidnapped. Oh no! What's going on? But are you sure, sir? Really, are you? Shouldn't we stop and make camp before sundown, sir? The younger guardsman is jittery and demanding, with a stooped posture that reminds me of a rat. His round face is marked by pock marks and worry lines. No need. We're making good time, says the old guardsman. The other guard, as old and large as the caravan wall, has a deep, crusty voice well suited to his frame. I once saw him struggle to fit through a door. I like that. Astute. The pock-marked guard glances towards the horizon line, gritting his teeth. But, sir, enough. We will be rid of her today. Be rid of me? Like being rid of some stained rug? How rude! What did I ever do to warrant such objectification? Feeling vexed, I continue to groan and yowl against the hemp between my teeth. It's inarticulate and far from the most graceful sound I've ever made, but I make it sound increasingly urgent. Noise and more noise. One of them pulls the reins of his horse, dismounting with a dull armored clatter, like a rattling dish cabinet. It's the younger one. Good. He approaches me, muttering, swears he reaches back to yank the gag from my head. What? Convict? What is it now? Am I a convict? Are we a convict? A woman convict? Cool. Most people buy me a drink before they bring out the gag. Wink, wink. You're all in grates. You hear me? Low-browed, barbaric boneheads, a whole lot of you. Start screaming. Ooh, changed her face. Oh, it's kind of like that. Okay. Guard, what? Okay, I picked one. Okay. Will you stop? Make her stop. What did you ungag her for? I'm sorry. You'll all be sorry. The pockmarked guard whirls on me, exasperated. Convict, stop it. You'll attract wolves. I need somebody else who can read these. Why are these not voiced in the game? My scream dies down, only slightly. Gods, you really haven't learned your lesson. What's wrong with you? He almost sounds amazed. If my hands were untied, I'd twirl my wrist and do a curtsy. But because my hands are tied, I decided to get in his face. This is me, a prisoner. What's wrong? I wager you know exactly what's wrong. I was under the impression we'd moved past real ritualistic sacrifice as a civilization. You see, I thought we were better than all this. Yet here you knuckleheads are, dragging me through the woods to feed me to a godforsaken vampire. They're what now? What? We need Buffy. I stomp on a branch when I get close enough. The ensuing crack obscures the sound as I unsheath the dagger from his belt. I palm it under my sleeve in a quick motion, hoping my ruse goes unnoticed. The guard stumbles away from me. He draws his sword to keep me at bay, snarling. You keep away, you heretic! Don't come near me! I raise my bound wrists in front of my chest, widening my eyes to look appropriately frightened. And I still have his dagger. By the time he clambers back onto his horse, his older companion extends his arm and smacks the back of young guardsman's head. There should be a "the" in there. Idiot! Now we have to listen to her belly aching for the rest of the journey. Do we? The younger guard rubs his head, sounding defensive. She's caused nothing but trouble. Why not slit her throat and be done with it? Let the wildlife take care of the remains. Ah! The old guardsman hits him again. I'd find humor in this slapstick routine if they weren't discussing my imminent demise. Shush, boy. We carry Her Majesty's orders to the letter. You and I, no shortcuts. You know the severity of our laws. Underhanded practice will cost you your damn hands. The pockmarked guard hunches further at the shoulders. His eyes dart around like he wants to argue, but he begrudgingly clamps his mouth shut. I, on the other hand, have a dodged penchant for making my observations known, and am blessed with quick retorts. Or just costs the fingers if you're lucky, I notice our wise old man here's missing a digit or two. I raise my restrained palms, wiggling my fingers. They glower balefully at me. I've seen actual battlefields, harlot. Do you liken me to your crooked bar-brawling ilk? Harlot? He's calling me a harlot? Seriously? How rude! Convict, heretic, and now harlot? Wonderful. I roll my eyes and wrinkle my nose at him. I'll bet anything that the old man is lying. It hasn't waged any wars in the past half-century. Furthermore, he boasted to my jailers that he's been assigned to this post for the brunt of his service to the crown. But I know better than to push my luck with him. He's more prone to violence than any other guardsman. I used to lag behind at the start of our journey, defiant and stubborn. The old one never hesitated to yank the rope around my wrists, lurching me right into brambles and sharp stones. Defying him, I learned, meant having scraped palms and knees at best. Our pace carefully slows when we cross over a mossy log and a series of thick, tangled roots. For the horse's sake, of course, rather than mine. I work my jaw in silence for a while, keeping a measured distance behind them. My grip on the dagger is unwieldy and clumsy. Aiming it towards my bonds is trickier than I imagined. I flinched as the point tip jabs against my inner arm, but shoot the guards a winning smile when they turn to look at me. So, good old cursed forest, eh? Did you volunteer to escort prisoners through the blighted brush, or was it an inherited post? Father's father and such. The pock-marked guard scoffs and mimics my words under his breath. Nothing to fear in these old woods, lass. Not if you're properly armed. Nothing but bears and wolves. People steer clear because they fear what lies in wait beyond. Surely you know what that much. Mm-hmm. The men don't deign to tell me how they were assigned to their roles. None of my business, I suppose. An overhead canopy of leaves parts, allowing patches of sunlight to heat my scalp and cheek. The journey has been long and exhausting, but not altogether difficult. I'd even considered it idyllic from its perpetual backdrop of bird song and distantly running water. Any sense of leisure sinks and coils at the pit of my stomach as I realize the birds have gone silent, and the sound of water has risen into a dull roar. Before us is a murky disk of water blemished green with algae, miles long, miles wide, and a harrowingly uncertain depth. A jagged, ostentatious state, protruding from the ground like a sword through someone's back, looms across the water's expanse. Not the first decrepit castle I've seen in my travels, but perhaps it may be my last. That's where I'll be staying then. Home, sweet home? I've barely shorn through a quarter of my restraints. Even if I make a break for it now, they'd run me down on horseback. I tried it before, but back when they marched me through the greater plains, they nearly trampled me in paste. Quiet down, you sorry lass. You may wish to take this time to consider your last words. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I could hit you with a real zinger before I go. The old guard groans, mumbling a bitter prayer. I barely have time to hide the dagger before he dismounts and shoves me with more force than necessary. He loads me unceremoniously into a ramshackled little boat, leaving the pock-marked guard to deal with me while he tends to the horses. My breath catches when the remaining guard takes the seat opposite to me. His gawky movements nearly makes the boat capsize before we've even left the shore. The boat cuts through algae like a knife. Over on dry land, the old guardsman takes a heavy seat in the grass as he watches the sun descend. It's a more serene view than he deserves. I take a deep breath and open my mouth to shout. Overgrown prune! The young guard bites back a chuckle and clears his throat. I suppose he's freer to find revelry now that we're a safe distance away. As I wearily crane my neck around, I observe how the water completely surrounds the estate. That makes this a moat, but there curiously isn't a drawbridge in sight. At its northeast and westward edges, the moat connects to a river. Following one side will likely lead one straight to the Rubifian Ocean. It's quite lovely, really, to be surrounded by such a wealth of natural water. Shame I never learned how to swim. I don't suppose I can persuade you... Can I persuade you to ferry me over yonder? All the way around the estate, on the other side of the shore? The guard elects not to reply. He won't even look at me now. Aside from the oars, carving through the water, the remaining boat ride is hushed and nerve-wracking. I sit straight and stock still, trying to keep my weight centered despite the stinging insects nipping at my neck and ankles. The sun turns red as it dips closer to the horizon. It takes half an hour to reach the other side, if not longer. Beyond the lip of the water is a carved ledge with a pit of trenches surrounding the estate's perimeter. The guard wastes no time forcing me upright and pushing me off the side. I fall into a roll barely cushioned by the impact of grassy mud. I aim myself back up with effort, ready to yell the insult boiling at the tip of my tongue. To my surprise, the young guard is still up there, lingering at the edge. Miss me already? I quirk my head to the side and bat my eyelashes at him. His response is slow and deliberate. I won't even remember you by tomorrow. I hardly know you, convict, and you don't even know my name. Who needs names? We're two ships passing in the night, you and I. But it's not too late to change that, Oh, this is her. But it's not too late to change that, We can still run off into the sunset together. Come on, help me up. With the sun setting behind the guardsman, his features are cast in unreliable shadow. His fingers twitch and tap at his side. He casts an uneasy glance over his shoulder before finally he grumbles and rummages through his overcoat. From it he pulls the neck of a familiar instrument and throws it onto the ground with me. I cry out as my lute lands in the mud, nearly falling onto my own shoulder as I reach and fail to catch it. You'll owe me in the next life, convict. I hope this accursed thing proves you some comfort in your final moments. I glare at him. Old guy made you nervous, didn't he? All that talk about cutting off hands for being underhanded? Shut up. I knew you were acting jumpy for a reason. I just knew it. You were gonna pawn off my poor little beauty here, but now you don't want to risk getting caught with it. Harlot! He spits at me before he hurries away. I listen for the sound of the boat sloshing onto the water, and then the creak of oars shortly thereafter. Now why is it that when people don't know how else to argue with a woman, they must remark on how frequently she has? With effort, I dislodge the dagger from the inside of my sleeve. It's still unwieldy, but cutting myself loose is a little easier when I don't need to hide the blade from my captors. I pick up my lute, carefully wiping off the dirt and grime before I check and adjust its strings. I holster it across my back where it belongs. It's thankfully intact, but I'm not sure I can say the same about myself. I know I need to come up with a plan. I need to explore and get familiar with my surroundings. Seek out a hiding spot while there's still daylight. But my entire body is aching. I won't get far if I push myself to move now. I check the inside of my clothes for the last of my possessions, kept safe and hidden under the lining. I've never been more grateful to have learned invisible stitching. A handful of coins and my songwriting journal are all I have left. I had hidden a number of small blades on my person, but I was too reckless in my previous escape attempts. I kept getting caught, and they confiscated all my knives. This guardsman's dagger isn't too shabby, at least. I tuck the blade into my belt, careful not to poke myself. I'll be ready to use it when it's dark. The ledge I fell from casts a long shadow. I edge away. Pardon me. I edge away from it into the remaining light, and I concentrate on taking deep, rejuvenating breaths. Yeah, I wish I could. This creature of the night, I've heard it can change its very shape. If it pursues me in the form of some animal, I doubt I can outrun it for long. It's wisest to save my strength so I can battle whatever form it takes. After all, I'm determined not to go down easily. Oh, okay. Chapter 2. Dusk falls. There's barely a sliver of apricot orange glowing across the horizon, which means my shelter of light dims and shrinks by the minute. I shiver as the evening cold burrows under my clothes, and I sense the vampire just moments before I hear it speak.
Well, another gift from the crown.
That's voiced? Where's the rest? The creature's airy, serpentine voice moves around me as it prowls beyond the perimeter of remaining light. It's watching me, circling me like a vulture.
What grievous crimes you must have committed to be sent all the way here.
I draw my dagger, pointing it at the source.
Assessing your dinner, beast? Your mother should have taught you not to play with your food.
The voice lapses into a contemplative hum. My heart hammers against my ribs as I lose track of the vampire in the silence. I twist around, catching sight of its eyes reflected in moonlight right when it lunges. The vampire snatches me by the wrist. The skin on its dark, clawed hand bubbles under the waning sunlight before it wrenches me into the shadows. My dagger clatters to the ground.
You're talkative. I usually like it when they're talkative. But yours is an insolent nature. No doubt you've ended up here by disrespecting some local authority.
Ooh, that was cut short. The vampire hoists my arm above our heads, positioning us face to face as he regards me. I scrutinize him in turn. He bears similarities to a human man, but I steal a glance upward, observing his already healed hand with dismay.
You smell of chain rust, fresh soil, dried blood, and incense.
Yeah, I'm a big hit with nuns and orphans.
What am I doing? This isn't the time for banter. I struggle in his grasp. He steps forward, and we remain blanketed under the gloom of darkness. There's a small clatter underfoot as he drives his boot under my dagger, kicks it upright, and then snatches the blade out of the air in a fluid motion. He twirls the dagger between his long fingers, appraising it.
Most unusual. Few of my guests manage to smuggle a means to escape their bonds. If I had to wager, you must be a talented cutpurse, which wouldn't be the worst offense, all things considered.
Stop manhandling me!
That's a little overdone. With my free open palm, I smack him hard across the face and yank my captive hand free. He flinches at the blow, looking more astonished than anything. I don't stay long enough to watch how he reacts next. I run. My lungs are heavy in my chest, and my body is screaming at me to catch my breath, but I can't stop now. There's nothing I can use in the courtyard. My only choice is to head into the estate and hope to find a means of escape. There's got to be a ladder, or something I can use to scale that damned ledge. Then I just need to find something buoyant, like a wood panel or a door. Something. I run down dizzying, identical hallways. Down several cavernous rooms, displacing dining chairs and overturning saloon end tables in my wake. But there's nothing I can use to escape, nothing I can narrow down in my panic. All the while, the vampire follows me with an even stride. He rubs his cheek with narrowed eyes.
Will you slow down? This is terribly tedious.
I love the graphics. This was well drawn. This is all hand drawing too, it looks like. Nice.
No.
He hasn't changed his shape, but I know how quickly he can pounce if I let him near. I can't let him get close. I topple a nearby cabinet, sending it careening into the floor between us. The vampire makes a small, offended noise amid the sound of crashing glass. Before he can react further, I seize a standing vase and hold it aloft, ready to throw.
Stop it. Calm down.
I pivot my grasp on the lip of the vase, bending my arms menacingly. Water and flowers slosh onto the floor.
You dare to tell me to calm down? Really?
There's an audibly muffled sigh when the vampire steeples his hands in front of his nose.
I despise the chase. Look at this blasted mess. You realize no one else lives here? After you're gone, who do you think has to clean up the remains of your rampage?
I'm sorry. Are you criticizing the way I'm fighting for my life?
You must understand, mortal. Despite what the good people of Illuvia will have you believe, I have no bestial compulsion to take your life, all right? Though I'll admit you have sorely tempted me with the prospect of your demise, there is a civilized alternative worth considering.
A civilized alternative to becoming a withered, bloodless corpse, decorating his hallway? I keep the vase aloft. Halfway between willful rebellion and uncertain curiosity.
I'm listening.
That is all I ask. First of all, this here.
He dangles the dagger from between two fingers as if it's a dirty sock he found in my chambers.
As a show of good faith, I will return to you this nasty little thing. In exchange, you will not stab me with it. Its blade is neither sharp nor long enough to kill me, but it will deeply annoy me. If I am deeply annoyed, I will be forced to rescind my good faith and tear you to shreds. Understood?
I furrow my brows, but I nod. It makes sense. If I actually want to incapacitate him, I'd at least need a larger weapon. I've yet to hear any myths where vampires are notoriously weak to standard cavalry daggers.
Good girl. Here.
He tosses the dagger over to me. It slides along the floor until I stop it with the heel of my boot. I don't bend to pick it up.
Our next matter at hand is the barter. I've been known to spare and set my prisoners free in exchange for knowledge or for an item of substantial value. Fortunately for you, I noticed the loot strapped to your back while you were racing through my abode.
Oh no. I pivot my torso away, trying in vain to hide the instrument from sight.
Come now, don't be selfish. Give it to me and you will have your freedom. Your life will be yours again. Keep away from Illuvia and lay low for several years, and the crown will be none the wiser.
I can't.
What?
Oh boy. I've cared for it ever since I was a little girl. How can I possibly give it up now?
I can't give it to you. No. I nearly lost it once already.
Nothing is stopping you from purchasing a new one once you have your freedom. Certainly you'll have to save up for a while. I recognize the value of an average instrument, let alone how much an artisan lute must cost now after centuries of inflation. However, you will have plenty of chances to...
No. No. I said I won't give it to you.
Why not?
Why is he angry at me? Hypocrite! I raise my voice to match his tone. I can't help it. I get competitive.
You imply me to be insensitive on the grounds of trampling through your home, but what about you? Demanding my only means of providing for myself.
I get the sense here she's supposed to be more cocky, more quippy. I don't know, is it me? Because she sounds more turmoilish to me? I don't know. It's a great storyline. I'm just wondering.
Your only means? Nonsense. You're able-bodied, young, far from hideous. Once you have your freedom, I'm quite certain you'll figure something out.
Your venerable age must have impaired your hearing then, vampire, because I'm not sure you quite caught it when I repeatedly said no. I am not giving it to you.
Fine. Then you're not leaving.
He flings his hand skywards, turning and stalking toward the nearest
I
window.
pray you'll have fun rotting in here for the remainder of your brief and miserable existence, mortal. At which point you and I might have something in common.
He erupts into a vicious flurry of black mist. Once the smoke clears, I see the flapping outline of a bat soaring out of the window and into the night. I groan between gritted teeth, jostling that stupid vase that I'm still holding over my head. As tempting as it is to smash it, I set it down and begin gathering the displaced flowers with a dejected sigh. The blooms are vibrantly fresh and fragrant, but they're going to wilt without water. Gods, I just got into a screaming match with a vampire and upset him so much that he had to, I don't know, go take an angry nap? I'm still alive. I should really count this as a win, but I don't know. My chest is tight with apprehension. I wasn't supposed to annoy him. He said he'd rip me to shreds if I annoyed him. Damn it, God damn it, what have I done? I should have offered to barter with something else. I doubt he'd be interested in a few coins I have, and I can't bear to part with my music. But he did mention an option to trade knowledge. Even if he's had centuries to experience the world around us, surely there's an obscure nugget of wisdom I can impart. After all, I like to think that everyone I meet teaches me something new. I'll have some leverage if I can figure out what he already knows. And if I can't, then I need to find something else to protect myself. The dagger will be of little use aside from cutting rope. Stray Dog's Serenade. Chapter 3. This is interesting. Night seems never-ending as I creep through the estate. The vampire hasn't shown himself since our earlier squabble, though his absence does little to assuage my nerves. As any prey animal knows, the deadliest predator is one you don't see coming. Exhaustion weighs against my eyes, but adrenaline keeps me on edge, pulsing through my veins like a heavy drum. The slightest shift of wind-blown curtains makes me jump. I keep expecting those moonlit eyes to be watching when I turn. But the shadows are always barren, devoid of vampires. Does he truly mean to sulk for the remainder of the night? I suppose I should count my blessings while I can. As I explore, I notice how much successive chamber is spotless and immaculately tidy, aside from the furniture I disturbed, which I take the time to straighten. I uncover an abundance of books crowding the shelves in various surfaces. They contain an array of technical topics, including geography, astronomy, invocation, and mathematics. They're all dog-eared and full of notes. Ugh, don't tell me he's read every book in the estate. I can't panic yet. I can still narrow this down. Assuming he takes the time to clean his most frequented spaces, I ought to pay attention to what is and isn't covered in dust. Yet, even locating a single cobweb presents a unique challenge. I set a book down, running my hand across the marble exterior of an engraved fireplace. Even this is pristine, unmarred by old ashes and licking flames. The nearby fire iron, at least, is an encouraging sight. I pick it up to give it a gentle swing, testing the weight, and wince when my arm throbs in protest. Ah! I'll have to remind myself to use my non-dominant arm. The fire iron has a dull tip that's unlikely to pierce skin, but a decisive strike should send anyone reeling, even an immortal creature of the night. Of course, pissing him off by whacking him in the head is a last resort. I'm more interested in jabbing the fire iron into the ledge outside and using it as a handhold to climb my way up. The idea may sound absurd, but it could work. I won't know until I try. Although, even if I successfully scale the ledge, I still have to defeat the moat somehow. My gaze wanders across the chamber. If someone is wealthy enough to build a castle, they usually enjoy surrounding themselves with larger-than-life portraits. One would think that I've found a big enough painting to pry off the wall and ride across the moat by now, but the decor is tragically modest. As I move to lower my arms, a golden glint reflects off the dark metal of the fire iron. I pivot my shoulders with cautious hope. There, thin rays of dawn's light gleam through the drawn curtains. My body practically moves on its own. I march to the window and wrench the curtains open. Morning daylight fills the chamber. I'd never been happier to see the sun peeking over the mountains like an old friend. Though the movement of the curtains shift, a small beige shape moves with its... What? A small beige shape moves with it across the floor. A rat? I hate rats. I've always been scared of them. Yeah. When I hop away from the shape, I observe how it doesn't continue to move. I bend to inspect it, using the fire iron for support. It's just a furled scrap of parchment, brown and frail with age. Yet, it's an unusual sight. Considering how free of dirt and clutter the rest of the room is, would you look at that? He's finally missed a spot. I suppose the vampire doesn't enjoy cleaning under the curtains, lest the sun sneak up on him unawares. I turn the paper over, noting the smudge of charcoal rubbing off my thumb. Part of a larger drawing? Maybe even one of those enormous portraits I'm sorely missing. I'm sure it's worthless, but no harm holding on to it. Perhaps the vampire will appreciate my help in tidying up. I try and fail to hold back a yawn that makes my entire body shudder. The bloom of sunlight fixed in the sky, though refreshing to see, also serves as a reminder of how much time has passed, of how little sleep I've gotten. There won't be a better time to get some rest. I look about the chamber one final time. To be so surrounded by various furnishings is a mystifying sort of torture. Despite how all those nights of sleeping on the ground have left me yearning for the comfort of a cushion, I know I can't sleep here. The vampire needs only to close the curtains to accost me in my sleep. Back outside I go. The days are long this time of year. I'll have plenty of time to try climbing the ledge when I wake. I grab a decorative pillow from a sofa. It's not much, but it will make my cobblestone bed a little more bearable. I retrace my steps through the estate and practically collapse into the first ring of sunlight I find. I awake from a dreamless, restless slumber into the cold of evening. Sitting up with a jolt, I scan the sky with mounting dismay. Sundown again? Already? How could I have slept for so long? The clenching ache in my bones and blossoming bruises on my skin reveal the answer to my unspoken question. Oh man, my allergies. My stamina is spent. I won't be able to run the way I did yesterday. No, damn it. It feels like the very shadows are reaching for me, streaking across the ground like long claws. And speaking of claws... Oh yeah. From the shade nearby, the vampire looks down at me with flat displeasure. My fingers curl instinctively around the fire iron. You're still here. On the ground, no less. Well, where else would I be? Why is this part not voiced? Why, I figured you would have climbed onto the roof, run some mental calculus to determine the best angle of approach, and then leapt into the moat to swim to freedom. A beat passes as I stare at him. Yes, that would be very practical. But anyone who tries it would surely splatter against the rocky ledge below. Perhaps, and even if they made it to the water, they would discover the alligators in the moat. alligators! Really? No. What the hell? I think I liked you more when you were menacing about the crimes that I'd committed. She dislikes the taste of her own medicine. Shocking. He folds his arms behind his back as he paces around me. I'm very aware that he can grab and drag me into the shadows if he so desires, but he's choosing not to. You never did tell me what you did to get sent here. You're right. I didn't. We stare at each other now, sharing an ugly pause. But I apologize for my behavior last night and for making a mess. Truly? He looks as though he's expecting a punchline. Yes, truly. I don't know what it's like to own an estate, but I'm sure it's dreadful having someone run through it. Indeed. Will you tell me what you're planning to do with my fire iron? What? This old thing? I could lie to him, but I see little point in it. Well, I've developed a skill for enthralling an audience with tall tales. It's not as if I can trick them into believing my stories are real. Unless they're children, of course. And the pacing vampire hasn't seemed terribly childlike thus far. In any case, I'm not a good liar. And one is not a good liar. When one is not a good liar, honesty is by far the better policy. If you leapt at me, I would have tried to swing it at you. But I also thought I could use it as a handhold to get over the ledge. I cannot begrudge you for your caution against me. But using a fire iron as a handhold? Really? The ledge is made of solid stone. Well, it's old, isn't it? Surely the stone has weathered down over the years. It most certainly has not. You would begrudge me for trying everything at my disposal? I might, if you ruined my fire iron in the process. I love this guy. You need not try such inventive tactics if you agreed to barter with me. Right, yes, about that. I'll have you know, I'm extremely well-traveled. How informed are you about, recent history and, new discoveries throughout the world? What makes you think I would be interested in such things? You mentioned you were open to trading knowledge. I remember it like it was just yesterday. Every 2 years, I receive a new guest at my estate. Each guest has some capacity to tell me news of the outside world. I have previously offered their freedom in exchange, but hearing news of the outside world loses its appeal when one is not, welcomed to participate in it. But some men and women have nothing else to give. Surely you would not deprive this opportunity from a future guest when you have more to offer than this. My loot feels heavy against my back. What else can I offer that amounts to the price of my freedom? Please, I can't give it to you. He scoffs at me. Just when I thought you were seeing sense. But I may yet be as amenable as you have been to me. Last night, I hadn't fully understood that you play music as your primary profession. Not at first. My recent slew of guests have been cutthroats and highwaymen. I forget that I've also housed scientists and artists. I presume you must be good at your craft. As such, you need your loot more than I do. The sudden and unexpected empathy leaves me speechless. He takes my silence as permission to continue. I ought to also admit it has been a very long time since someone has told me no. It irritated me to hear, but it is within your right to say. Forgive me for making it seem otherwise. As if our cordial conversation hasn't been astonishing enough, the vampire inclines his head toward me. You're forgiven. But wouldn't everyone have fought you to the bitter end? I imagine there must have been several no's sprinkled in there. He chuckles wryly. When properly bound and restrained, one's capacity to fight to the bitter end is, quite limited. I expect this lends itself to making my guests more amenable to negotiation, and to giving me anything I should desire. Oh, he really wasn't expecting me to break free of my bonds. Enough of this matter. I propose we approach this from a new angle. What do you want, mortal? If freedom has no strong appeal for you, perhaps you'd be more interested in power, in immortality. I don't miss the saccharine way he says the last word. No, I'm firmly sure I do want freedom. I can't imagine what price I'd have to pay for the other two. My stomach growls. But I could do with some food. Food? Food. Even if I get out of here, the nearest village is miles away. I won't get far on an empty stomach. You would ask a vampire to feed you. A marvelously modest start to our negotiative... I love it. A marvelously modest start to our negotiative relationship. Your empty stomach shall be filled. I should have a surplus of blood lying around here somewhere. I'm joking. I'm not so old that I've forgotten what mortals eat. Come with me. He begins to lead the way. I struggle to my feet, but have enough difficulty steadying myself that he pauses and turns to observe me. I end up using the fire iron to help me maintain my balance, like a metal walking stick. You look pitiful. I'm sure. My apologies for not being the picture of grace after a 9-day hike with slave-driving guardsmen. Now, where exactly do you plan on taking me? The vampire is kind enough to slow his pace and walk with me in parallel tandem, though he stays in the shadows and I in the waning light. You are astonishingly paranoid. I'm taking you somewhere I can feed you, like we agreed. You mean to feed me? Oh, yeah. You mean to feed on me, don't you? No. He says it with such disgust that I gape at him, taken aback. Oh, don't even bring the act. Oh, don't even begin to act offended. Have you looked at yourself? Filthy, dragged through prison cells, and mud. Your taste most certainly will be foul. I bite back a retort about how I'm supposed to taste. More importantly, you're really not going to kill and eat me? Ever? Covered in muck as you are, I have no desire to touch you. You doubt me? I don't know. It sounds like you'll attack me the moment I'm clean. And I can't get a read on you. Oh, and I can't get a read on you. Maybe it's your fetish to lure your victims into a false sense of security? How easily you remark on a stranger's fetishes. I had my suspicions that you were a traveler, but I'm certain now you could not have been raised in Illuvia. Ah, yes, beautiful Illuvia, kingdom of ungrateful prudes. They don't appreciate me here at all. I am quite certain they did not. You may have a seat and wait here, though I can't guarantee the chairs won't bite. Very funny. He smirks a little at that, though he turns as if to hide it. The kitchen is nearby. I won't be long. I caught a glimpse of his kitchen during my exploration last night. I noticed it was stocked with well-loved pans and utensils, but I never imagined that meant he used them with any frequency. I expect you'll stay put, woefully wounded as you are. If you wander off and I can't find you, I'll have to deposit your meal into the moat. Ah, very well. I'll tame my adventurous spirit for the time being. Wouldn't want your imaginary alligators to feed on my place. You're catching on. Good girl. True to his word, the vampire returns in short order. He sets a tray loaded with roasted roots and grilled perch before me. Wow, a simple enough meal, but one of the most beautiful sights I've seen in recent memory. It's not a plate of blood. It is not? Shall I switch it out for you? No, I'll be quiet. I reach for a fork and slice into the fish, excited to savor my first meal in days. I take the first bite and... it's awful. Some of the prison slop tasted better than this burnt, oversalted tragedy. Even stranger, I taste hints of cinnamon, garlic, and coffee? At this point, I have no idea what I'm eating, but I'm too hungry to stop. I must have outdone myself. Don't forget to breathe. Mortals need air in their lungs, I hear. It is delicious, isn't it? My fork pauses against my lips. I don't think... Do we tell him it's really bad, or do we tell him it's the best thing we've ever had? Cinnamon, coffee grounds, and garlic. On fish. No thanks. Yeah, best meal I've ever had. I don't think so. I think I'll be honest. Gods, it's really not. This is one of the worst cooked fish I've had in my life, but it tastes better than starvation. The vampire regards me with an unreadable expression. His next words are as slow as they are measured. I've served more than 100 guests in my lifetime. Not a single one of them has described it as, I quote, better than starvation. Without constructive criticism, how will you improve? Surely you will not begrudge me for being honest. The vampire watches me finish my next bite, eyes narrowed. No matter. I care not what you think of my cooking. His lower lip is unmistakably jutted into a small pout, but I don't get to see it for long. Now that I have given you a meal, will you now give me something I want in return? Why do you keep insisting on these inane little trades? He shrugs his shoulders with a touch of derision. It is my nature. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. No service without a cost. Fine, vampire. Can I interest you in a song? He arches a brow and says nothing, but I can tell I've piqued his interest. I've seen your books, all technicality, no whimsy. It must have been some time since you last heard a compelling story. I shift my lute into my arms, strumming it once for intrigue. A tempting little preview. Very well, Bard. A song in exchange for the meal. I lower my gaze to my lute, heaving a sigh I didn't know I was holding. Good. I just have to play a single song. It's a simple request, one I've filled thousands of times over in several dozen taverns, but the thrill of anticipation is making my fingers jitter. Just yesterday, I was grimly certain that I would never perform again. Now? Now, I'm performing for the vampire who was supposed to tear me to shreds. I trace a fingernail over a single string. Then I pluck at each string sequentially, testing and tuning in turn. And then I begin to play. The vampire, who until now had perpetual proclivity for pacing, slows and pauses mid-step to watch me with his hands folded on a writing table. My voice turns into the best weapon I've ever wielded, stronger and sharper than any knife or fire iron. Notes trickle my lungs, rush through my throat, and pour from my lips into a song that floods the room with a tale most forlorn. The ballad I've chosen starts melancholic. It follows a young man as life takes from him. His father is the first to be taken, life cut short by a plague. His betrothed the next, abandoning him for a wealthier man. When he's brutally mugged and left for dead, he feels as though his last remnants of peace have been torn to shreds. He finds himself alone, left behind, forgotten. His mind is swallowed whole by rage and grief and self-loathing, until one day he decides it's his turn to take. He takes a torch to the stables of his former betrothed. He takes a nobleman's heart with false oaths and pretty words. He takes the world by storm, molding it like wet sand to fulfill his every desire. When I finish the song, I offer the vampire a small bow. Throughout my entire performance, his gaze clung to me like a thorn, never once wavering from my body. What a wretched protagonist. You don't like it? It's one of my most requested tavern songs. Ah, how baffling to hear that human men find inspiration in an egocentric finale. There's a version of the song with a female protagonist. It's not always requested by men. Another unexpected revelation. Although I find the song's message disagreeable, I will concede that you sung it well. Oh, why, thank you. We lapse into a brief silence, not quite looking at each other. To my surprise, he's the one who speaks next. This estate, I've often forgot what it's like to have more than the sound of my own thoughts and of cicadas crying in the night. With nothing to interrupt the passage of immortality, silence can be maddening. How much do you earn at these taverns of yours? How many songs did it take for you to afford an instrument of that quality? How many songs? I've never thought of it that way. It doesn't really work like that. I looked down at my lute, running my fingers over its surface. It was given to me, which means I never actually had to pay for it. But I don't need to share that with him. Sometimes I compose original songs on commission, which is more time-consuming, but affords me more gold. As for crowd work, a classic in a well-stocked bar on a good night would net me several dozen coppers and a handful of gold. I suppose it amounts to 100 songs or so, if I combine the two. Of course, saving up for an artisan instrument would take even longer. Yes, 100 songs, you say. 100 songs over 100 nights, and I will ensure you have food, hygiene, and eventual safe passage from the estate. Hygiene? But if I'm clean, you'll want to suck my blood. Then you can be clean in the day and dirty yourself up in the night if it pleases you. Do what you will. His words hang in the air between us like a haze. Despite the numerous opportunities he's had to hurt me, he hasn't laid a hand on me all night. If my safety really is guaranteed, it's a tempting deal to take. Besides, it's not like I have many other options. Just some songs, and you'll let me go? You won't try to steal my loot while I sleep? You take me for a common thief? How dare you? Such an appalling accusation when you can clearly see I still have all my fingers. The vampire raises his hands for me to see. The familiarity of the gesture is uncanny. It seemed to me that a powerful vampire like you can recover from serious wounds in an instant. You could once have been amputated at the elbow for all we know. And speaking of vampires, I seem to recall a legend that suggests your kind can't cross running water. Which means you can't leave the estate either, can you? I'm curious to know what crime you committed to be sent here. Enough! I await your song tomorrow. He stands to leave. Oh, good night, sweet prince. Don't let the bedbugs bite. Or I hope you see me in your nightmares. Let's go with good night, sweet prince. Good night, sweet prince. Don't let the bedbugs bite. You realize I'm not going to sleep. I just no longer wish to be in your company. Then I hope the bedbugs bite. Keep speaking that way, and there may be more biting than you bargained for, mortal. I clamp my mouth shut. He strides to the nearest window. Okay, he just disappeared in a bit of puff of smoke. Whoa. Like before, he erupts into mist and takes off into the night. Hey, Kauyasaka! Hello! Yes, a new game. It's vampirish. We got some vampires running around the castle. Like before, he erupts into mist and takes off into the night in the shape of a bat. But this time, he's left me with a half-finished plate of unsauced fish. It's a quirky little game. It's interesting. It's, sort of like a visual novel, I think, kind of thing. It's kind of cool, but it changes to whatever you select. It's a pretty neat, it's really well graphicalized, for lack of a better word. This is really cool. Some of it's voiced, some of it's not voiced. It's interesting. It is called, what is it called now? I've forgotten. Hang on, I'm looking. Ballads and something or other. Ballads of Midnight. There we are. I found it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Do what you will, the vampire said. I was reluctant to believe it when he gave me free roam of the estate, but he's since made no move to impede me. I was allowed to wander wherever I pleased. I discovered a little of note. Just more books and the continued absence of dust. Nothing more suspicious than the errant scrap of paper from my first night. Despite my best efforts to distract him, the vampire only appears to feed me some disgusting fish and claim his song. He stays long enough to make wry commentary sometimes and small talk other times. But in physical proximity, he's given me a wide berth. Song, poof, song, poof. He's polite enough, I suppose, and utterly uninterested in causing me harm. That was enough to move me from a cobblestone bed to a cushioned one. The days soon blended together like the colors of a sunset. Other than my fading bruises and brief performances, there's little to mark the passage of time. The monotony of our routine sways my feelings of weariness into restlessness, puzzling. Questions swarm my mind like locusts, and my aimless wandering doesn't yield enough fruit to feed them. I'd like to sate my burning curiosity by interviewing my vampire, but I'm not sure how to approach him when he vanishes after my song's final notes. Besides, I still have every reason to sleep with the fire iron wedged under the door handle. Every so often, I'm startled awake by blood-curdling screams. I wasn't actually going to do this one. We had technical problems early on. They love to follow me. But, yeah, so we ended up with this one. I was going to do this next week, but it's kind of cool. So we just brought it on now. I like it. I ventured out from my room more than once, fire iron in hand and my dagger in the other. I tracked the noise up the many flights of stairs, worried I would stumble upon the vampire feasting on an unlikely traveler who washed up the river. Then I would stand at the foot of his coffin for a time, waiting to hear signs of a struggle, waiting to see pools of blood oozing across the floor. But I was always met with an eerie, unmoving silence. I went back to sleep with my bed pushed against the door each time, determined to keep out whoever or whatever was making these horrible sounds. Although I'm sure I would have run into them by now if anyone else is living in the estate. One can never be too careful. Still, as harrowing as those noises have been, sleeping in an actual bed is incredible. I'm starting to feel pampered. The food still leaves much to be desired. But I have pillows, blankets, and the softest pelt carpet on my floor. A creepy estate is indubitably, better than camping with stinky surly guardsmen and sleeping on the ground. It's a hassle to shove my bed to and from the door, but I think it's a small price to pay. Brisk, invigorating air fills my lungs as I step into the courtyard. A shiver scuttles across my spine as I settle into dewy grass. I position my songwriting journal in my lap, having recently freed it from my clothes with some careful incisions. I always get lost in thought when I turn its pages. The act of deciding on a song makes my heart swell with calm contentment. After choosing one of my older pieces, a spirited melody I wrote when I was younger, I wrap my lute over my shoulder and begin to practice. My performances occurred in crowded areas before I came here. I had to compete with the clamor of moving people, from passerby to raucous drunks. Here in the grass, I find myself not needing to fight for coin or attention. I can focus on my music, and nature itself is my ensemble. I sing softly, timing my rhythm with the shifting trees and the gurgles of the moat. I like to imagine my notes, quiet though they are, carrying far into the forest, reverberating down mountains. Performing without an audience. My pulse quickens, startled by the sudden voice. My fingers slip. The next strum is discordantly off-key. I squint skywards, trying to make out shapes in the darkness. Reclined across a brick parapet, overhead, the vampire stares down at me with his usual flat expression. I slam my journal shut and hide it behind my back. You! Did you mean to sneak up on me? You'll have to try harder than that if you want to catch me off guard. In an easy, soundless motion, the vampire drops to the ground like a falling feather. He saunters toward me, eyes glimmering like diamonds in the dark. I can assure you that if I were to try harder at such a thing, you would not wish to be the recipient of my attention. And I'll have you know that I was here first. Ah, then I suppose I've disturbed you. I didn't mind. His reply was faster and more decisive than I anticipated. My heart hammers harder against my ribs. What is this? Fear? Am I really afraid of a speedy retort? Ridiculous. In a vain attempt to hide weakness, I hover my hand over my chest. No, I suppose you wouldn't mind a free ballad. Shouldn't you be hibernating in the rafters this time of night? I don't normally perform for another hour or two. Not tonight. He gestures to the night sky. The moon above us looks swollen, rounder and larger than I remember ever seeing it. Even so, is a mere full moon really so impressive? I part my lips to express my thoughts when a warm shadow inches across the moon's surface, spreading from its left side like a cocoon around a caterpillar. Soon the moon is as red as a sunset, a glowing, rosy marble anchored in the night sky. A blood moon? A total lunar eclipse is the technical term, though you may call it what you like. It only occurs 3 times a year. The people of Illuvia insist that a blood moon is a bad omen, and seeing one during my travels was a foreboding sight. Yet, the vampire watches the moon with such earnest intensity. I fear his admiration for its I fear this admiration for it is contagious. I think I need a drink. It's beautiful. What does it mean for you? Are you more powerful while it lasts? The vampire barks out a small, surprised laugh, and his eyes cut away from stargazing to glance at me. No, not at all. I simply... He folds his arms behind his back. I enjoy the view. The parapet is the best spot to observe the heavenly bodies in the sky. The ground is a close second. The vampire tilts his head, watching me with an expression I've never seen him wear before. Confused guilt. What? What is it? My hand twitches, ready to seize the dagger at my belt. I have been referring to you as a bard and mortal all this time. I don't believe I ever asked your name. I rest my hand over my lute, relaxing somewhat. You're right. We yelled at each other in the hall and never even introduced ourselves. You can call me... Abigail? Oh, you get to put in your name in now. Okay, finally. Took a while. 3 chapters, you get to put your name in. Ooh, I like the font. Isn't that pretty? I love the whole outside of it, too. How the frame is just so pretty. And the graphics. Oh, enter to confirm. I do like how well done this is. Sherionics. Yes, it suits you. Ooh, I got an achievement, too. A bard by any other name. I love it. Ah. Does it? He smiles at me enigmatically. You can call me Lucius. Ooh, I like that name. Lucius. Lucius. His name weighs on my tongue like a stone. I never imagined myself learning it. With how often he's alluded to his immortality, it slipped my mind that he must have been a human man once. It's a humbling thought. Moreover, this is the longest amount of time we've spent without the distraction of music or bartering. He's even feeling affable enough to learn my name. I should try asking him my questions. I may not get a better chance than this. Lucius, if I ask you some questions, will you insist on making it a barter? The vampire doesn't respond for a while. It depends on the question. I suppose that's fair. How about this? You don't have to answer a question if you don't want to. I can move on to the next one, and we'll talk for as long as you're willing to entertain me. Ah, now I am the one entertaining you, and at the generous cost of nothing? What an amusing turn of events. I'm surprised you're so eager to talk to me. I believe you said something about the maddening silence of eternity. I've begun to understand what you meant. I see. Ask your questions then, Sherionics. I will not ask for you to trade your possessions, but I may like to quell my own curiosity in exchange. Agreed. He agreed. I wet my lips with anticipation. There's, sometimes this noise. It sounds like screaming. That doesn't sound much like a question. I'll rephrase. What? The source of the noise will not hurt you. I know your turn to answer. It's now your turn to answer my question. The haste with which Lucius changes the topic is unexpected, but not altogether unwelcome. He did sate my curiosity to a degree. Tell me something. As a bard, what do you know of the stars? Huh, a simple question that leads to a comprehensive answer. Wise play, vampire! I observed the pinpricks of light above us, winking in and out of the mauve cover of night. Mauve. I don't remember the last time I relaxed enough to admire them. Before my arrival here, looking at the stars meant I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I needed to watch my own back, keep myself safe and alive. Though I sang of beauty and adventure, it seemed pointless to actually indulge in such things. It was far more focused on where I would lay my head or earn my next coin. How strange to be able to indulge in stargazing now, with a vampire standing nearby. I traced different patterns in the sky, moving with practiced ease between each dot. The horned serpent always points north. Even as its body shifts, its tail will tell you where you've been and where you must go. Ah, yes, the horned serpent. Anything else? It's harder to navigate using the others, but I know a few stories. This box-shaped cluster in the treasure trove of the goddess Melandrin... What? Melandrenal? Supposedly, it contains every possession humans have lost throughout their lives. And I draw my finger between the 7 brightest stars in the sky. That's the 7 sisters. That's the first king's crown. The stories say he bequeathed it to the heavens, an offering to the gods to keep his bloodline on the throne. It's actually funny. Illuvia hasn't had a king in centuries, and it most certainly isn't his bloodline anymore. It seems the gods played a nasty trick on him, Lucius chuckles. It's such a low and abrupt sound that I lose my train of thought. They may have indeed. I may yet know a story that you do not know. Shall I share it with you? I arch my eyebrow at that. Who says I don't know the story? You're being unfair, vampire, making me play guessing games. Lucius. Lucius, right. You're being unfair, Lucius. Then tell me this. Do you know the story of when the stars first appeared? There's a story behind that. Aside from the idea that each one was placed in the sky by the gods, I suppose I don't know this one after all. I knew it. Oh, don't gloat. Are you going to share the story with me or not? He lets out another low chuckle before he deigns to continue. I suppose no one knows for certain how the stars were created, but one of my guests shared with me a tale from his homeland. Unlike the self-serving stories Illuvia dictates to its children, his kingdom believes that humans are not always a fixture in our realm. He believed that once, a very long time ago, the world existed in an endless night, a quiet, pitch-black quilt of eternity, unbroken by castle spires and bonfire smoke. When humans began roaming the earth, they would hold their newborns up to see the divine darkness. The stars above them, dotting the skies in this peacefully lonely world, were believed to befriend these infants and provide protection. The stars were there when we first arrived, and they will persist long after we are gone. That is what he believed. Thus, watching the night sky is when we are closest to glimpsing what it was like at the beginning of the world. and what it will be like at its end. Oh, gods! Did your guest earn his freedom with that story? I would have given it to him, yes. His cryptic phrasing gives me pause, and Lucius falls quiet. His gaze remains transfixed on the sky. Meanwhile, I'm having trouble tearing my eyes from him, and from the melancholic air he wears like a heavy cloak. I don't know how I ever could have missed it before, because I think that sadness has always been there. The more time I spend here, the harder it becomes to see him as the monster Illuvia led me to believe he was. Perhaps that's what makes him dangerous. Or perhaps... I shiver again, rubbing my arms as a breeze whisks through my hair and clothes. Lucius turns promptly away from the sky, clicking his tongue at me. If you are cold, head inside. It will be challenging to play a lute with icicles for fingers. No, I'd like to stay out here for a little while longer. Monsters aren't supposed to watch the sky and tell you stories about where the stars come from. Monsters aren't supposed to spare your life and cook disgusting fish for you. The wrongness of my perception of him is eating away at me. I need to ask him my next question. Were you human once, Lucius? How... It doesn't take him long to pick up where I trail off. How did I turn into this? No, He holds up his hand to stop me. He is not bothered by the exact phrasing of the question. I was human once, and in many ways, I still am. You're well aware of the standard method of vampiric infection? I'm sure. Be bitten by one, mix their blood with your own. Then there's usually some matter of death or near-death experience. But then, voila. You're a ravenous immortal of the night. But I suspect you're also aware that I was not, created in the same way as others have been. I'm quite alive rather than undead, and I have no sire or coven to compel my allegiance. I was not aware of all that, but from his subtext, I gather that the blood-curdling screams aren't coming from another vampire. Yeah, good to know. Additionally, as I hope you've noticed, I have not lost my mortality to bloodlust. It was your most likable trait during our wayward first meeting. Good. He catches himself, as if he didn't mean to agree with me, before he shakes it off. Just as humans have notable differences, not all vampires are the same. But the people of Illuvia are keenly familiar with the ferocity of vampire spawn, who routinely raid their homes and eat their children. I do not blame Illuvians for believing the worst of me by proxy, though I do find an occasional amusement in the things they say. Tell me, what tales are the good people spinning about me these days? Or better yet, have you any theories of your own? Theories of my own? I don't think so. I've heard bits and pieces of vampire lore, but I've never felt the need to speculate. I've never even seen a vampire before I met Lucius. There's all sorts of legends about you, but some were more akin to tall tales. People refer to you as a sort of ominous presence, or a natural disaster. As for how you were created, as you say, one of the guardsmen who captured me, he believed you stole from the gods, Did I? Huh. I'm impressed with myself. How did I manage such a feat? They said you broke into the church's wine cellar and drank your fill. As punishment, the gods cursed you with a voracious appetite for the blood of your own people. I've said before that I'm not a thief, but overindulging in wine does sound like something I'd do. I've always had a fondness for reds. Any other thoughts? Oh, we get to pick something, finally. You're what happens when a man mates with a bat. You dealt with demons. You're what happens when a man mates with a bat? Yeah, I like that one. I beg your pardon? Okay, this wasn't specifically about you. It's just something I overheard in a tavern. But since you do turn into a bat, I thought the idea had some merit. They were talking about how vampires were born after a man. You know, implying my poor late father took common animals. He will be rolling in his grave tonight. Well, perhaps you're not far off from the truth. My mother had her moments, but oh my, what an astonishing thing to say about one's own mother. You've tricked me into another guessing game, you know. Are you going to tell me the truth, or will you keep goading me to recite absurd theories? His white fangs gleam when he smiles, reflected against starlight. Why, have I revealed all my secrets now? I fear there will be no riveting banter left to pass the time. We wish to stay the hand of maddening silence for as long as we can, do we not? Fine, we do. Maybe I can ask you about simpler things? I retrieved the small charcoal scrap I found on my first night of exploring, holding it up for him to see. I found this under some curtains. What can you tell me about it? Is that? Lucius moves toward me and halts mid-step. His hands linger in the air between us, as if the scrap is a loaf of bread and he hadn't had a meal in weeks. The intensity of his reaction compels me to stand and turn. After a moment of hesitation, I gently set it into his palm. Lucius practically cradles the scrap, his fingers passing reverently over the smudged charcoal. I just thought I was being helpful by tidying up a spot you missed. I was going to tease you about it. You actually recognize it? I do. His demeanor has completely changed, almost to an unrecognizable degree. His stooped shoulders don't resemble the grid, dry-humored vampire I've come to know. Then again, I hadn't taken the time to know him until tonight. He breathes out with shuddering difficulty, as if his lips had gone dry. But slowly he begins to speak again. I ripped it to shreds one night. I was so angry back then. The night I arrived? No. This was a very long time ago. This was a portrait of someone I once knew. I shake my head when he starts to hand the scrap back to me. You don't need to give it back, Lucius. It was yours to begin with. Unless you ripped the drawing because you hate the person depicted. Do you not want it anymore? Lucius avoids my eyes, though he tucks the scrap carefully in his pocket. A pointed question. Humans really do prefer black and white thinking, don't they? He's referring to me by my mortality again, rather than my name. It's complicated, then? A sore subject? Yes. His snappy tone makes me flinch, but I hold my ground and refuse to let it show. Because how can hatred persist in a vacuum of eternity? Once anger has finished ransacking what remains of your soul, all that's left is exhaustion? Lucius narrows his eyes at me. How would you know such a thing? I give him an innocent little shrug. I'm not ready to change the topic to myself because I find myself genuinely wanting to know more about him. Lucius regards me for a while longer, tapping his finger against his collarbone before he relents with a sigh. I see no reason to keep this secret from you. The portrait depicts the reigning monarch who exiled me here over 300 years ago. Her Majesty, Hildegard Edgehaven. Oh. My mind races and I bite my lip. I don't want to upset him any further with a poorly timed question. Carry on, ask whatever you like. Within reason, I will indulge your curiosity. My questions burst from me like water from a long-suffering dam. How did you come upon such a portrait? I hear it's illegal to depict the faces of the royal family in common artwork. Just having one in your possession, it's an open act of rebellion, isn't it? His lips lift on one side, taking on a smug edge. I'm well aware. What further punishment do you think the current crown can bestow upon me if they found out? Perhaps they will banish me to a different estate? Or perhaps they'll stop sending me guests, hoping in vain that I'll dry up like a prune from lack of blood and attention. To answer your question, I described her face to an artist from memory. So you've seen her. You knew her from before. What did you do to the Queen Hildegard? Did you break into her wine cellar, or were you her former lover? She exiled you when she caught you with another? Disgusting. No. We were never thus involved. Besides, I prefer to take one partner at a time. Juggling two seems, taxing at best. But based on your logic, on what you said when you met me, you must have committed a crime so deeply, grievously, utterly heinous to have been sent here. Am I wrong? It's been a long time since I last felt like I was sitting in a confessional booth. I don't miss the glint of amusement that dances across his otherwise unflappable features. What of you, I did ask you first, as you said, and all this time I've been dying to know what unforgivable crimes you committed. Oh, I've made a vampire feel like he's dying. Quite a feat on my part. I sneeze. Achoo! You really must get indoors. Come, I'll walk with you. You'll not be beset by distant screams while I am by your side. Yes, all right. Let's get indoors. That's rather gentlemanly of a vampire. How about a hint, then? A hint about what? What you're still thinking about? You are insatiable. It's one of my most charming personality traits. Come on, let's trade hints about why we're here, what crimes we committed. Will you go first? I will go first. He seemed satisfied with that, though he also decided to occupy his hands with a cleaning cloth. I watch him clean every surface he touches like a whirlwind of sanitation. He tends to settle into one of the various lounge chairs during our nightly performances, but without the backdrop of my music, I notice he seldom likes to hold still. Well, I'm waiting on your hint. I haven't come up with a hint yet. I glanced down at my lute and songwriting journal, trying to remember what it was like when I first held them in my hands. I remember how jealous the other girls were when our overseers chose to train me as an entertainer. It was a coveted position, and I was so proud. I remember the crushing disillusionment when I realized they would never allow me to play or to speak freely. The strict, inflexible lessons where they rapped my knuckles with a cane for the slightest mistake. I remember how I swore that one day I'd say and do whatever the heck I wanted. Damn the consequences. You already know that I have a dodged penchant for speaking my mind, Lucius. I grew up in a stifled home where this attitude was deeply discouraged. Once I broke free of them, I didn't want to hold myself back. I was drawn to everything I couldn't do while I was growing up. I wanted to see the world, and I did. There are times I've been relentless, unreasonable, and careless, all in the name of acting freely. It's gotten me into trouble more than once. Being sent here is the latest in a long line of consequences I've brought upon myself. I see. You grew up among people who wanted to break your spirit and punished you when you did not bend. The stifled home you described sounds a lot like an alluvian one. You'd have much in common with the children here. More than you know. I bite the inside of my cheek, taking a moment to weigh my options. As far as I can tell, he has been honest with me. Should I not be honest with him in turn? Lucius, I'm from here. I'm from Illuvia. What? So you do know all of Illuvia's beliefs and customs, yet the way you act and carry yourself is in spite of them? It seems we are both rather insolent, you and I. Though they should have given you credit for turning out as entertaining as you did. I don't act this way to spite them. Not intentionally. I ran away at a young age and haven't returned in years. I suppose I've shed what little Illuvian manners I had. But if you left to see the world, why in heaven did you come back? Don't you now owe me a hint? A hint? He echoes me, folding his arms in front of his chest. He finally ceased cleaning, or perhaps ran out of things to clean, and has settled into his usual velvet chaise. A hint about what I did to end up here. Lucius aims his face at the ceiling as if he could see the stars through it if he stared hard enough. I don't think I did anything wrong. You didn't? After I made myself vulnerable, told him where I'm from, and detailed the shortcomings of my personality? The nerve! What does that even mean? You don't think you did anything wrong? How does that qualify as a hint? That doesn't... I falter as I notice that Lucius isn't arguing with me, or even looking my way. Will you play me the song you were practicing outside? I fear we do not have all the time in the world. I will be forced to return to my coffin before long. Forced? You say it as if you can't sleep in a bed with the curtains drawn shut. I would if I could. I dearly miss sleeping in a bed. Wait, you actually can't sleep in a bed? Why not? Questions. Despite his griping, Lucius does not leave me in suspense. Vampires are prone to, compulsions. Universally, they cannot enter one's home without an invitation, and they cannot set foot across running water. I hear some vampires even compelled to count spilled seed and grain, or to count the holes in a fishing net. I have an additional compulsion. A curse, courtesy of Her Majesty Hildegard Edgehaven. When she had me exiled, she also used sorcery to bind me to a coffin. I cannot stray far from it, lest my insides twist upon themselves, strangling me from within. The first night I resisted the coffin's call and slept in a separate chamber. I awoke vomiting blood. Naturally, this is far from ideal. I need to retain all the blood I have. You asked me if I hated the subject in the portrait? Well, it's true that my anger has faded into exhaustion. I do still find her admirable. She knew how I despised tight spaces. Oh, gods! Lucius, that's terrible! Terrible enough for us to move onto your nightly performance. Yes, of course. Forgive me. I clear my throat, brushing my fingers over my neck. What are you doing now? Is that where you'd like me to bite you? I yank my hand away from my neck as if I touched a hot pan. Lucius! I jest. If I bit you there, you would die from blood loss. Though I would bite you if you asked it of me. Are you so certain that you're not interested in eternal life? You keep talking like a man who no longer wants to hear a song. Lucius raises his hands in surrender, though I catch a sight of his shoulders still quaking with amusement. That's cute. Chapter 5, Rhythm and Rain. Okay, I think we're gonna stop it there. That's hilarious. I like this so far. I really like this. The banter between them is good. The graphics and the backgrounds are really good. Not so sure about the voice acting at the beginning. Sorry, that's just me being critical. Um, at the beginning I don't know, it was kind of quirky, and she was this the character was more, quirky. She was more quick retorts, quick comebacks. And now it's getting all like heavy and all this other stuff. And I mean, granted, he's a vampire, yes. But, wow, pretty cool. What do you think? Do you guys like this? We're on to chapter 5. We can continue this another night. We'll save it here. How's that? Oh, empty slot. Okay, so when you go to save it, it goes to here. It's an interesting storyline. I think what I might do is invite someone else to voice along with me, and then it'd be a lot more entertaining. I think that'd be kind of cool. All right, empty slot. Save. Do we save here? Are you sure you want to overwrite your save? Yes. Oh, and then it shows you where you are. Oh, I like that. Okay. And it's not 2:53 a.m. here, by the way. Yeah, since I've gone to the dual boot, it just, the clock doesn't work right for some reason. Might be part of my computer problems, you never know. Anyway, so you get a bunch of slots, you can save the game and return. Now, what happens in this story is, depending on what you choose, it depends on how it progresses in the storyline, right? Which is really neat. So it's kind of like a visual novel, pick your own story type of thing. I love it. Absolutely love it. So that is kind of cool indeed. Rather cool, cool. I like it. go to the main menu here. Are you sure you want to return to the main menu? This will lose any unsaved progress. I've already saved it. So this is Ballads at Midnight. If you like it, it is a free game. You can play it. I love it. And it's, I don't know. I really like it. And I like the effect of these little fireflies flying around here. There are credits in it and everything for all of this. Love it. Scriptwriters, editors, writer, director, UI designer, programmer. Oh, look, there's 3 different pages of it. Voice actors, apparently. Eric did a great job. Eric Navarro. I love that one. I don't know the other ones yet. We haven't run into them. Royalty-free assets. Oh, this is cool. Okay. Yeah, this is just a really cool game. Slash novel thing. Storyline. And I want to continue this. We might continue it here. We might, if you guys like it, let me know. There are no comments below here. But just let me know in chat or Discord if you like. But yeah, that one's kind of fun. I like it. New transition coming up. I'm going to take a small break. And then we'll be right back. Hopefully you like the new screens, the new transitions and everything. There's more coming along the way. Hey guys, I was gonna come back for a little bit of Genshin, but I have somebody that's calling on me here, so I need to head on out for tonight, and cut this short. I was gonna do some Genshin with y'all, but as I say down south. But I gotta head on out. Hopefully you loved Ballads at Midnight. I like it. Great little game. I think it's amazing for the graphics and the style and the storyline. We'll keep it going. But we got some more games and things coming online, so hey, check them out if I can get the other ones to work. And we'll see you the next time. Night, guys. Happy Genshining. Check out Ballads at Midnight.